Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Experience Kills. It's a Richard week. Richard's here. Hi Richard.
Yeah.
Hello Richard.
Whoop, whoop, raise the roof and all the stuff that young people say. Whoop.
In addition, we have podcast regular Rob.
Hello.
And it's me, Ben. I'm always here. You can't get rid of me. And in the week that we get the amazing news of Lockdown Part 2, Electric Boogaloo, I thought nothing better than to bring everybody together to talk about video games so we don't spiral into some kind of group suicide situation. So yeah, cheer me up, boys.
Oh, that went dark quick.
I was about to say that's a wonderful cheerful thing.
We haven't even started on the mostly miserable news as well yet. So you wait if you think this is dark now. Sean Connery's dead, by the way, as well, guys. It's all good, yeah.
Yeah.
I was really bummed about that as well. I mean, he was 90.
We do have the ever-eternal podcast cat as well that will be taking a lot of my attention, because he's wanting attention. The second I do something with my day, he must be involved in it.
Frank does that. Frank, my dog. Tommy Cannon died as well. Let's not forget Tommy Cannon.
Who's that?
Of Cannon and Ball.
Who are they?
He was a cannonball?
No, it wasn't Tommy Cannon. Bobby Ball died. Tommy Cannon is still alive.
So this is it means nothing to me. I mean, Sean Connery.
Don't know.
Sean Connery. James Bond died. Yeah, I think you are that old, Richard. Yeah.
Yes.
You may very well be, yes.
James Bond
Bobby
died.
Ball.
Slash the lead.
Oi! Look,
no, we're not going to talk about Bobby Ball.
You're gonna give him attention that he deserved. Cannon and Ball were a famous comedy double act from the 80s, and Bobby Ball just died of COVID. That's very sad.
Oh, of COVID as well.
Yes.
Okay,
so I've been watching the Cannon and Ball Christmas Special 1985 today in memory of Bobby Ball.
In memory of simpler, better times as well, I suspect. Back when, but the thing about the 80s, all the goodness I was saying, we had like, post-Cold War, we had Thatcher government, we had women with basically no equality. This was the halcyon times of the UK. Oh no, hold on, it still sucked in 1985. So it's just that's the theme of the show. Things still suck and will always suck.
So please come
As
back
everyone
next
can
week.
tell at home, Ben's having a
entertainment.
great time right now.
Yeah.
Well, this all started with Cyberpunk getting delayed again.
Oh yes.
And I have just been spiraling from that, basically.
Yeah, that was a fun day at work. When that news broke up, Ben and I are fortunate enough in the real world, sorry about that, to work with each other. So we do see each other quite regularly in the same office. And he was not in a good mood when the news broke about the second delay.
Second?
Delay.
Fourth?
Yeah.
It's the fourth time it's been delayed.
It's not that much longer to wait. You'll be okay. And actually, if what you're worried about is not being able to play in a futuristic dystopia, just look at real life.
That's not helping, but thank you.
Jeez, and we're trying to move on to slightly lighter topics, Richard.
So, there were some things about this delay. It wasn't handled great. So it turns out that when they announced it, they basically didn't tell any of their staff or employees that they were doing this. And the reason that's not great is because a few weeks back we had the news that they're crunching to the endpoint after making a point at CD Projekt Red of saying they weren't going to crunch. So they were crunching to the endpoint, and it was mandatory, and it was 6-day weeks, and we talked about this, I believe, on the podcast. So to then delay it further and then give your employees another 3-4 weeks of additional crunch without actually telling them, they found out when the news broke on the internet. That's perhaps not the coolest thing to do, CD Projekt Red. And then they caught some flack for this, way more flack than they deserved, obviously. Inappropriate levels of hate, but they could have handled it better. Especially, did you guys see the tweet of like the social media account telling a guy who was like, "I want to book the time off work. Can you guys 100% guarantee that it's going to come out on this day, in November, so I can book my time off?" And then, yep, absolutely 100%. And that was the day before. That they then announced it's going back to December, and it's like
I didn't see that.
And then the PR guy's back in that thread. He's like, sorry about that, we fucked up. Like, oh, my bad. They mea culpa'd it. Like they owned the error as much as they could, but they didn't even know about it. Nobody knew about it. The PR guys, the developers didn't know. Nobody knew. Except right at the top of the business.
The fact that wasn't communicated internally before the press found out, I think. That is a very big mistake. I think that was really badly handled.
Yes.
I know I don't know. I reckon they found some big game-breaking bug. That's the only thing I can think of to cause this sort of delay at this point.
The reports indicate what's causing the problems right now. The game has gone gold, which means it's feature complete and fully playable start to finish. What the problems are coming from are the original iterations of the current generation of hardware. So we're talking about the fat Xbox One and the first PS4 before Pros and S's and X's, and they're trying to release across, I think they said their number was 8 or 9 different platforms simultaneously, and basically that old hardware is causing them issues. To make it polished and playable on the platforms, and you can understand why that might be. Richard summed it up perfectly there with the which is basically, when you're told you've got this new hardware, these new consoles, this new PC specs that we're at now with graphics card, as a developer you're going to want to make it for the best shit possible, right? So it's a hell of a lot of work to make that work on a flipping OG Xbox One, which struggled with games that to even get them run at 1080p. There's a lot of Xbox One games that run at 900p, for Christ's sake, because they can't even hit 1080. Not 4K, not 1080 60, 900p. I mean, that gives you an idea of the limitations of that original hardware. So to get it to be able to work on that and everything in between up to the new hardware, Xbox Series X as the most powerful, can't even imagine the work involved.
How do you feel about the game being delayed for such old hardware? Do you think it's worth delaying for that?
I think that's demographic dependent. It depends how big of a size of the console family that pair of consoles takes up.
And if it how takes big up the problems are, because no one's going to expect it to run super smooth on an original Xbox One.
They're not going to get it perfect because most people will have upgraded, or at end of life consoles would have been replaced and that sort of thing, especially as it was meant to be launching with a new generation of hardware, because people would have bought Cyberpunk Xbox Ones. I know Ben did. He's got his special edition.
Never play Cyberpunk on, which is amazing.
The irony in there is just
incredible.
Painful.
It's incredible. That's a really good point. It's install base, and I think that must be what those top 2 or 3 dudes who made this decision, looking at the numbers, looking at the install base, looking at we need to get this many sold to recoup development costs, and all of that. All you can think of, it's a big enough percentage that they've decided delay to make it work on those is preferable to releasing in an unplayable state on those consoles, or scrapping release completely on those.
This is what I didn't get though, because when they announced it had gone gold, as you say, that means it's feature complete. It is playable. So it's presumably that means across all of the platforms that it's releasing on.
Yeah, so Microsoft wouldn't have given gold cert on the Xbox One if it didn't run on the fat Xbox One. So it must run
really poorly.
Yeah, really, really bad. Is the only thing I think of. Very low frame rate, very low resolution, that sort of thing.
It's the only thing that could cause such a delay at this point. We were hitting the 2-week countdown for it almost, I think. I forget what the release date was meant to be.
17th? Something like that? Yeah. So a little over 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks out. So you're talking about fixes that will come in a patch anyway, in a day one patch, which is probably going to be the size of the game again, is the impression I'm getting, if they're doing this much work. But that's all still to be confirmed. We still don't know what the install size is to expect. I expect it will be hefty, looking at the resolution. I've been following, for example, I've been watching every time they put out one of their Night City wires or whatever they call them, where they do these deep dives into different parts of the game and stuff, and it's looking incredible. The work, the polish, the depth, the detail is just incredible in this game. But it must be something really functional, really basically functional, which is why they're having issues. And maybe this is a smokescreen to hide other stuff. Maybe that they're thrown out the old excuse of it's you fuckers with your old shit as a smokescreen to maybe there are bigger issues at play here, which they're scrambling to sort out, which in their now probably 7-day crunch periods, which will have no days off and no sleep for the next 4 weeks.
I do think there is probably a game-breaking bug somewhere that may have been found. Like we had this happen with Watchdogs Legion. That dropped, and it had a game-breaking bug that caused your Xbox to overheat and crash on the Quest 404.
We'll talk about Watchdogs Legion more. Yeah. We'll talk about Watchdogs Legion more.
I wonder whether it's something like that. I've been playing it. Happened.
I'm not sure that was real, Rob. In honesty,
really,
no, not from what I've experienced. And there's only one outlet really reported that. I'm not sure how real that news story was, which is why it's not in our news rundown today. But I'll definitely talk about Watchdogs Legion. It's the only game I've been playing, so when we get to that section of the podcast, we'll go into that in detail. But yeah, unless you guys have got anything else you want to bring up about Cyberpunk, I think it's important we talk about the other delays that were announced this week.
Yeah.
These ones, I must admit, I'm not as bothered about. But Ubisoft in an earnings call, or whatever they want to call it, latest financial report, delayed both Far Cry 6 and Rainbow Six Quarantine somewhere into next year. Far Cry 6 had like a Q4/Q1 release date. I think it was around March. It's penciled in. I'm not sure about Rainbow Six Quarantine, but they're both going backwards into the 2021s. And this is continued COVID knock-on effect. This is, and let's be fair to CD Projekt as well. They will also be struggling with this. So having to have everything work from home, not being having your teams in one place, it is creating issues, and they're doing their best to hit their dates, but they've got to be realistic as this pandemic rolls on and on and on. Countries going in and out of lockdown as we're experiencing right now. You're just going to have continued issues with keeping on target. So I think this is what we have to expect. We've seen it in the movie industry, and we're seeing it in the video game industry. Delays are going to be the constant right now. As people try and get used to this new normal,
ever-changing new normal,
the ever-changing unprecedented events. I think that's the favourite one, isn't it? So
yeah, I don't think you can say it's unprecedented when you're basically half a year in.
Oh, it's
we're
not far off a full year, are we? Really?
It's getting there.
Yeah, rapidly approaching.
Yeah, someone said I saw something on Twitter the other day. Someone was talking about how Nintendo do this right. You don't see Nintendo delays because they never actually tell you when things are coming out. And I thought, yeah, there's something in that, isn't there? They don't usually commit.
Depending on the size of the franchise.
It's also because they're a black box, aren't they? First party development in Nintendo, there's nothing comes out until they want it to. So it's they're very, very secretive.
See, I almost disagree because it's the size of the franchise. Like Pokemon games specifically, they are announced well ahead of time when they come out. And I think Breath of the Wild, like the Zelda franchise as well, is relatively immune to that concept because people want release dates for that. Otherwise, yeah, you are pretty much on the money with Nintendo. They are pretty cagey about releasing confirmed release dates. But with their kind of de facto biggest franchises, they are more open and more telegraphed.
Okay. I mean, what did you guys think of this update that's coming to No Man's Sky?
I'm looking forward to it. I like No Man's Sky. I love the feel of it. I love the look of it. I haven't played it much. I prefer Minecraft and modern Minecraft on my PC over No Man's Sky, but I've been looking for an excuse to go back into it.
Yeah, I think I might start again, rather than roll my old character.
Should we explain what it is? Because we've bounced onto that subject as if everyone knows, but maybe they don't.
No Man's Sky is the fabled overpromised game from a few years back, which space exploration, crafting, resource gathering, and now so much more. For example, it didn't launch as multiplayer. It's now up to and will include 32 player multiplayer online, which is insane considering that was not the game to begin with.
It was advertised as that though, pretty much, wasn't it, before launch?
It was kind of implied that it was multiplayer, but it actually wasn't. And yeah, it was such a mess, wasn't it? But yeah, this game is like. Oh god, what's the one that's still in development? That one that was for the Kickstarter, the PC game that's like probably never going to come out, and yet people have spent billions on. Oh god, what's that game?
Citizen.
Is that Star Citizen? Is that the famous one? I thought Rob would know this one, but like
I don't know. It sounds familiar.
It's weird.
I probably kicked myself
because the difference is No Man's Sky came out after being overpromised, whereas that game was just the one's got Mark Hamill's going to be in it and Gillian Anderson's going to be in it, and it's like they're spending all this money, it's never gonna come out. It's like the most incredible bloody pyramid scheme ever made. You got these people still spending money on it, people still buying, like they say, you can buy this ship for this game that isn't out yet, but it's going to cost you $2,000, and people do it. Like it's madness. But anyway, but No Man's Sky was charming and made by this little studio, and I liked it at launch, even though it didn't hit what was promised. And now, my god, the free updates, the continued development, like how can you not appreciate what Hello Games has done?
Yeah.
So the story now is that they're doing it again. So another refresh, free updates for new consoles. So significant graphical updates for PS5 and Xbox Series X. So
And
that's good.
Looking at the visuals of it, right? And some of the density on those planets and stuff, it's starting to look like the key art they used. It's starting to look like the concept art for the games. It's getting to that point. It's incredible how good it's like looking. And so it always looked good and it was like colourful and vibrant, but now it's starting to actually look like those amazing pieces of promotional artwork that they had commissioned, 70s and 80s sci-fi inspired, bright colours really popping, and it's getting there, which is it's super exciting. I'm really looking forward to trying that out. And I believe that update's launching as the consoles hit, isn't it?
Oh, wonderful.
I believe. I might be wrong on that, but I think that's
right.
That
will get me into it. So I think I've got the game on PS4. I think it's on Game Pass now, isn't it?
Yes,
so maybe I'll try it on Series X.
Yeah,
I'll be looking forward to trying it.
Yeah, I picked it up again on Xbox. I had it on PS4 originally as well, and then I had it on Xbox as well. But yeah, really good. Okay, next news story. We're going to rattle through this because we've got a good topic this week and some games to talk about. So we'll get through this news a bit quicker than we have done in the past. But Sony have released their full list of games to be included in PS5's PlayStation Plus collection. And we were talking about this a bit before the show. I'm not super impressed with this list, but maybe because I've always cherry-picked the highly regarded PlayStation games and played them on my PlayStation. So I pretty much have everything from this list that interests me already. But Rob, you were a bit different. You thought this was
I think it's a good list.
Thing.
It's quite balanced, so they haven't gone down one genre more than any other. So they're hitting notes. You have like the open world exploration games like Arkham Knight. You've got the shooters in there as well. Like you've got Call of Duty Black Ops 3 in there. So it's just a nice balance. It's a good list. If you've played some of the games already, then yeah, it's a little bit naff to see, oh look, Fallout 4 is on there. Yay, I've played that to death. But it's just, for people who have missed it, I think it's a really, really well put together list.
If you were to think about the essential PS4 stuff, there isn't much that isn't on that list, apart from some of the more recent stuff. So obviously Last of Us 2 isn't on it.
The glaring omission is Spider-Man.
Yeah, but then they're trying to sell that again.
Yeah, exactly.
It can't be on the list, can it? They couldn't put that on the list, yeah.
So that's the only thing that I would say is actually missing from that list. I think it's really well put together. It's like God of War is on there, Infamous Second Son is on there, Persona 5, Last Guardian, Last of Us Remastered's on there. It's a really nice list.
It's a weird play in a way, though, isn't it, guys? Because it's a list put together to encourage you to adopt the PlayStation ecosystem if you've never been in it before. And you won last generation, guys, so what's the point? Like, I don't really understand it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that is the reason for it. I think
what
it's
is
more.
It then?
Well, it's so Sony are able to say we have a comparable offer to Xbox,
but they're not. But they're not saying that. You've got like 15 games here. There's probably 200 plus now on Game Pass, maybe even more.
Yeah, but unless they create their own Game Pass service, and PlayStation Now isn't really that. This is the next best thing that they can do and have some sort of presence, some sort of starting catalogue for players. I don't think it's entirely successsul. I think that's the message they're going for, though.
Maybe. Either way, it's unclear, and that's kind of the problem. It's like if you are going after Game Pass, you're failing miserably, and if you are trying to go get people into your ecosystem again, I don't know how that would appeal at this point, because those people are already on board, that if that's the games they wanted to play. So it's kind of a bit 50-50, and
it's win-win though, right? Because those people are already in anyway. They're not going to feel like they've been shortchanged because other people are getting games.
And you might have bought these games on discs, completed them, traded them in, and now you've got them back again digital. Oh, I really enjoyed that game. Why not give it another go? Yeah, it doesn't hurt. Like when I pick up a PS5
on new hardware, these games might run on a PS5.
Load quicker, run better. Yeah.
I think Final Fantasy 15 that could look very nice on next gen. It looked good on now, on current gen. That could look beautiful if it's upscaled well.
Yep. So the next story, Richard, was definitely one for you. So Anthem and BioWare have shown off a little tease of the direction they may be going with Anthem next, about UI, about how they may be going to deal with, weapon drops, armor appearance, customization elements. Did it excite you, Richard? Did it make you think, this is the right direction that they're going in? Could this be a reborn Anthem that might get you back? The most hardcore Anthem player I've ever met. So
it's too early for me to be excited about it. I mean, I held on for a long time on Anthem. We've talked about it before on the show, but I did give up eventually, and I can't see myself going back to it unless there is something radically new to tempt me back, or if it's really amazingly loads better on new hardware, so it gives me an impetus to try it again. But I don't know, it feels too early to be excited just yet, because all we've seen is that they want it to look a bit more like Destiny, and really it was, the whole game came out of EA wanting their own Destiny, didn't it? So that isn't really a change of direction as such. I think it's got very much everything to prove. So until we see more and get some people playing it, then I don't think there's much to see at this point. But it is reassuring, I suppose, in a sense, that they've been gone for so long and are still working on it. It makes you think this is a big deal still for them. They don't want to abandon it. And it isn't just some bit part DLC that they're chucking in. They've spent a long time getting this ready. So hopefully they've got big plans.
It's good to see them being open about where they're at and what they're working on. That's encouraging. It's like showing their community. We're still going. We haven't forgotten. Here's what we can show you right now. So it's good that they're being open about it. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay. Yeah. In other things that we could start to maybe get excited about, where it's still very, very early days, Netflix teased a live-action Assassin's Creed TV show.
Oh, yes.
We literally got a logo. That was all we got, was a logo, and that this is going to happen at some point in the future. But yeah, down.
We've also got the pedigree of Netflix, though, and how they handle video game to television translations. They're pretty good at it. Yeah. So we've had The Witcher.
Very good.
I was about to say, didn't we start with the same sort of concept of just a logo tease for The Witcher? And we know how well The Witcher's gone down. So I'm optimistic. I'm looking forward to this.
So last week, Richard, I believe you listened to the show, but we convinced Rob to watch the Assassin's Creed movie.
Did you watch it?
I haven't as of yet. The copy that I had didn't have subtitles. So I missed out on a large portion of dialogue.
Oh, yeah, because it's all isn't it like in Spain?
Yep. Yeah. So I'm going to look to pick up the Blu-ray in the week, and I do definitely want to watch it. I'm really looking forward to watching it. It's unfortunately not on any of the streaming services, so it's not on Netflix, not on Amazon Prime. It's...
Oh, that's a shame. It has been.
Yeah. It has been, and it's not anymore. The one time I want to pick up and watch it, it's not there.
Well, I look forward to you reporting back when you have seen it.
Very much
I think there's a lot of potential for Netflix to really dive deep and hard into that universe and explore it with Ubisoft's help, and I'm pretty.
I even wouldn't mind if they went back to Ezio. Like I've had my fill of Ezio by now, but if they told his story well in the form of a live action, do you know what? I'd be on board with it.
I think they're more likely to do original character personally, but
probably
either way, all good.
Whatever they do, yes.
So this next little news story probably wouldn't normally touch on a news story like this, but I really wanted to mention it because of a couple of things. Now, I played the demo of Haven during kind of, when Xbox put out all those demos over the summer, because because nobody had events. So they were like, hey, all these demos that would be like at Gamescoms and EGX things and E3s, let's put them out on Xbox and give everybody, for a limited time, give everybody a chance to taste the games that are coming, and that was really cool. And I checked this game out, Haven, and it really stood out to me because it was this sort of co-op focused romantic adventure, sci-fi setting kind of thing, beautiful art style. But what really blew me away was it had some incredibly naturalistic dialogue. Like the dialogue between the two characters, these people who have been in a relationship for some time. It's not just started, but they're very much together. But there's this back and forth between them that just played very real to me, even though it's in this sci-fi fantasy setting, extracted quite far from reality. And then it had some really nice, interesting gameplay mechanics that worked either in co-op with an actual other person, or you could do single player as well. And it's made by the developers, the game bakers, who made the game Fury, which is that boss rush only action game, and so it's a complete departure from that in gameplay, in style, and in tone. But it felt really interesting. Who it made me think of was Supergiant. How Supergiant would have consistently good artwork, consistently highly produced games, but often completely different experiences. So maybe we're seeing another kind of triple indie studio here that's really going to make its mark with its sophomore release after a good Fury. It kind of went under a lot of people's radar. I think Haven should be on people's radar, and it's going to come out in December, and it's going to be on Game Pass, so there's like every reason to check it out. And when I played that demo, I was just like, this is really cool and different, and I'd never played a game quite like it, which is why I'm giving them a shout out here, because I think it should be on people's radar. Yeah, when it comes out on Game Pass, especially in December. Yeah, next month now. Yeah, we're in November. Jesus, we're in November. Check it out if you get a minute, guys. So that's my recommendation from me. Richard looks like he's looking it up right now.
Well, I'm looking that up. I'm also looking up Fury because that passed me by. I've never played it.
Fury's cool. Yeah, Fury's really good. It's just boss fights, and then you kind of string it together. Really good music, really cool art style, really good controls, really tight, hard. Don't get me wrong, really hard, but cool game. Yeah. So check it out, boys, and everyone else. So let's move on to what is always great news. Whenever this happens at a studio prior to a game's release, you think, oh, you know what? Yeah, that's good. This game's going to be good, right? So I'm talking about the fact that Halo Infinite's director has departed the project. So that's always the best sign.
Inspiring.
Oh yeah, I'm totally not at all worried that and the new Halo Infinite is going to be a complete massive sack of shit now, because we were already worried about the delay. The game looked kind of old, didn't look great when we saw it in the year, and they've delayed it because of that. But now the news is that the main game director Chris Lee has left the project. He's still a Microsoft employee currently. But he's not working on Halo. So, I mean, what are you guys take away on that one?
I wonder whether that was a decision made by Microsoft because it didn't come out on time and Master Chief is plastered all over the Series X and Series S boxes. I'm wondering whether it's
they're just punishing him.
Drop the ball. Yeah, reassign.
I don't know if it's that. I think the headline makes it sound more troubling than it probably is, because it's not like they've just sacked the guy.
He's departed. He's left. Yeah.
It looks more like this is about who they've got in rather than who they want out.
Yeah, parachuting someone in to finish the development. That Microsoft have done that before on Gears of War, famously. That had a troubled development. I believe another famous one is the last Deus Ex franchise game. The first one of that had somebody parachuted in to get that finished and out the door. Famously, we had problems with BioShock Infinite. Which was like forever in development hell, and they got someone in just to get it finished. I believe it happened with Dishonored. Yeah, so a lot of games will have that producer guy who just comes in because he's not too attached to the project. Because it's probably the hardest thing in the world is saying cut that, ship it, right? Because that's what you need when a game has been in development for many years. If you actually wanted to come out, you need to kill off some of those things you love just to get it released. Now, it doesn't always work. Look at what happened with Mass Effect Andromeda. So much of that game got cut just so they could get it out the door, and it ended up not really being Mass Effect anymore. So it can be, you can be too egregious with that sort of level of cutting and editing at the end of a project, but has to be done, doesn't it? It has to be done sometimes to get these games released. Yeah. So you think it's more something like that, Richard?
I'm just looking up what the guy they've brought in is likely to do, because Joe Staten is the guy's name. He was at Bungie before and wrote mission scripts and dialogue for the games.
Yeah.
So he's a writer. It makes me think that the release date for Halo Infinite might be further off than we anticipate, because that's fairly fundamental to the campaign, isn't it? If they're redoing dialogue, cinematics, the overall thrust of the story is being tweaked and changed, that could delay it significantly.
Let me put it this way. At some point, 343 went, you know what, librarians and didacts, that's a cool story, let's ship it. So it needs to be better than that. I mean, that was garbage. I mean, and then the others, they also thought, hey, here's another idea. Let's not play as the Master Chief. Let's play as a guy called Locke, who's going to be tied into all our multimedia projects around Halo. Let's ship it. So it needs to be better than that. So the bar is pretty
they
low.
They can't really mess it up worse than they did Halo 5.
I'd say 4 was actually worse than 5, but yeah, I mean...
Whichever one it was with the whole Master Chief going rogue fighting BS, that was stupid.
They desperately need a win. They need the 343 needs to put out the Halo game the Halo fans have wanted since freaking Reach. And we've not had it. We've just not had it. And there's been some good ideas in there. There's been some good enough gameplay and mechanics, but the lore has suffered massively since losing Bungie. And I don't know. I mean, Richard, do you agree, or you've gone quiet on that?
Reach. I always go back to Reach as the only Halo game that I was ever invested in. I've played all of them. I enjoyed all of them for what they are. They're decent shooters.
Get off this.
But the only one that I cared about was Reach.
Get off this fucking. What are you doing here on
They're just not that interesting in terms of story. They're not that interesting.
I enjoyed the gameplay loop in Halo 3 more when it was under Bungie. ODST and Reach, you weren't a Spartan 2, yet you were as powerful as a Spartan 2.
No, you weren't. Not in ODST, you weren't.
Yes, you were.
Not in ODST, you weren't. Fighting a brute in ODST. Fighting a brute in ODST was like a boss battle compared to what it felt like as a Master Chief. Yes, it did. Nah. You shouldn't play on easy. Rob, don't play on easy, mate. Yeah, turn it up. Go put the difficulty up, man.
I did that on heroic.
Sounds like you
solo. It was super easy. It's renowned as one of the easiest Halo games to complete.
I wouldn't agree with that. Richard, verdict, please.
Which one are we talking about?
Let's move on. Okay, let's move on. So some interesting news here out of Remedy and 505, who we've now learnt to hate with a passion after their Ultimate Edition release of Control. But this does still bear getting reported because it is curious. So they've released Control onto the Nintendo Switch, but in a way I've never seen a game be released before. Basically, the Switch isn't powerful enough to run this game, so it's just a client to run it over your Wi-Fi connection. Bizarre, huh?
Yeah, really weird. Really weird.
I mean, I don't want to put down the money to test this, but I can't imagine it feels great. But
I'm not against the tech. Maybe it works fine. I mean, I'm into Game Pass, and as viewers of the show will have seen a few weeks ago, I've got my Razer Kishi controller. I really love cloud gaming now. It's good. But would I buy a full price release just to play it via cloud when I can't download it myself and all the stuff that you take for granted? I'm not sure I would. That's why I don't have Stadia. So yeah, that is a bit of a weird one, and it just makes you a bit paranoid. Maybe how long will it last? Because they've got to run servers to keep that game going. Is that viable long term?
It's an experiment, isn't it? It's more like an experiment. I couldn't tell you how much 505 is asking for this version of the game, but I would imagine it's full retail or close to. If somebody wants to look it up while we discuss this, but yeah, that is bizarre to me as well. But at the same time, it's like you said, it's leveraging that cloud-based computing powers like we've seen with Stadia, like we're getting with Amazon, like we've got with Game Pass, but not on a platform-wide sort of system-based concept, just for one single game.
Which is it. When it's Game Pass or Stadia or any of the major platforms, you can kind of think it's got some significant backing there. It is a platform rather than a single game that the plug could be pulled at any time. And as we know, 505 have not been kind to their customers of late, have they?
Well, if they decide not enough people have bought it, so it's not worth running the server.
Exactly.
It's like, or they look at the player count, and when it gets under a certain amount, they'll be like, "Wow, it's just no longer cost effective." You're not going to get a refund, are you? So I mean, that's really strange. But yeah, while Rob, have you got a price for us, Rob?
I'm looking. It's also happening with Hitman 3. Same set of rules. Yeah. Apparently.
So they're going to release on. They're going to do the same thing, like a wireless streamable version.
So. Yeah.
Weird. Very weird.
It's odd. It was part of a surprise Nintendo Direct Mini that came out. I'm still trying to find it.
They're not being transparent in their pricing. I suppose that's probably intentional, isn't it? I mean,
their official UK store website is a nightmare.
I'd like to see how it actually presents it as a purchase as well. Like, what does it tell you you're buying?
Yeah. For something that's out, it's quite hard to find.
Anyway,
you know what? This is weird because I found it on the Nintendo website, and it says it's a free download. You can download a free launcher application to test the game for a limited time.
Okay, cool that you can test it, but then I guess that's going to be some kind of in-app purchase for the full game.
Yeah, so I guess you've got to download it to find out how much it will charge you. It doesn't tell you on the website.
What irks me about this is the fact that it's a game that needs Wi-Fi to run. And what if you live somewhere that doesn't have a good Wi-Fi connection, or you want to play this on long train journeys as you're commuting to and from work?
That won't work.
Well, Rob, we've got a console for you. It's called the Xbox 360.
Right, Richard, I think we should move on to the topic for this week.
That's an 8-year-old reference.
It's good. I got it. Yeah, so we're going to move on to the topic. With
Richard.
Didn't. No, it's fine. We'll move on. Let's move on. Richard, introduce the topic, sir.
The topic. Yeah, that was my idea, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, which is why I put it to you, but that's fine. A well-oiled machine. Doing it. Like a well-oiled machine.
Let's not get too polished because it feels more real like this, all right? This is deliberate.
Real.
So, we've got a new topic this week. We thought it would be cool to talk about launch game experiences because we're really close to Series X and PS5 now. It's only a couple of weeks away. And we were thinking, what games really made us feel, yes, next gen is here? And there's loads of them if you think back. Because, well, for me, because I'm really old. But I think the first one that sprang to mind for me was Ridge Racer PS1. That was like the first console that I saved up for myself and my own money for it. Got Ridge Racer day one. And this was after having played Ridge Racer in the arcade at the Trocadero. Do you remember the Trocadero in London?
I do remember the Trocadero, yeah.
And they had Ridge Racer in there in a full-size sports car. That was awesome.
So cool. That is very cool.
So, yeah, playing that felt arcade perfect at the time. I don't know how close it was. It felt pretty close. So, yeah, PS1 was phenomenal to play Ridge Racer.
I mean, I'll pull one from the PS1 launch as well then in that case. Another racing game. But I think it stood out to me because it didn't look a bit shit in the same way as Ridge Racer did, because obviously, you're trying to reproduce something that's real. So instead with Wipeout, you're just trying to make something fantastical and then make it feel really, really fast. And it just blew my freaking mind, that game on PS1. And the music as well. Some of the best music in a game ever, and combined with one of the fastest experiences in a game, and also that cool combat racing idea as well, which you love when you're a kid. And that blew me away. I didn't get a PS1 at launch, but this was a launch title, and when I did get a PS1, this was the game I got straight away.
Oh yeah, you're spot on, because I got that as well at launch. I think I got about 5 games at launch.
Well, when doing the research for this topic, looking back at some of the generational launch lineups, wow, some of those consoles were stacked. Like the PS2 era, by the time that came out to Europe, there was a shit ton of games available without a launch, dozens of games, and it really does sort of
launch window
show up this generation up, doesn't it? Yeah, but go on.
When you count the launch window as well, like leading up to Christmas for the PS1. There's absolutely tons of stuff. I think Tekken wasn't launched, but it wasn't far after. It couldn't have been launched because I bought Toshinden Battle Arena, and I wouldn't have done that if Tekken was out. But Tekken came pretty soon after. There was loads of good stuff in just the first few months. But Wipeout was special. You are right.
Rob, did you want to pull one? Because your list is a little bit more limited because you're a child.
I'm not a child. I'm just significantly younger than these two old men.
My favourite launch game was Halo Infinite.
No, it wasn't. Because, I think at this point my children aren't going to get to play Halo Infinite.
Negative 6, Rob, there, yeah.
See, for me, I've rarely bought consoles on release.
Is this your first one? Xbox Series X, is it your first one?
Second. Xbox One was my first console on release.
Oh, bummer.
Should we cheat the topic then? And it can be games that made you think, oh, Christ, I need next gen. Because I had stuff like that as well. I didn't get an N64 at launch. But it's when I finally saw Star Fox 64, I thought, oh my god, that is incredible. I need that. So yeah, cheat the topic.
Exactly where I'm going to cheat the topic on, and I'm going to go quite old school. I'm going to go back to the days of Pokemon Yellow. Yellow. I can feel Ben tuning out already, but it's fine. I'm going to go with it because this is about all video games, this podcast, not just Microsoft offerings. Yes. I was lucky enough when I was a kid, I was given a Game Boy Color and 4 Game Boy games by my dad. I got Pokemon Yellow, Pokemon Gold, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, and a game called Merlin, which is like a side-scroller bullet hell shooter thing. It's actually quite fun. And because Pokemon Yellow and Pokemon Gold were technically cross-generational, because you had Pokemon Yellow that was a remaster of Red and Blue and Green, if you were from the Asian area in the world, there was a bit of a parallel. So I played a bit of Yellow, did a bit of that, got a bit bored and thought, I'll try Pokemon Gold. I knew nothing about Pokemon at this time. And the change between Pokemon Yellow to Pokemon Gold was insane. Obviously, full color, the sprites were better, more detail, the gameplay was smoother. It was a next-gen feeling, and it hooked me into a franchise that I still get obsessed over to this day.
He's trying to make out like he's old now, isn't he? He's like, I remember when it was just black and white.
I mean, that's the power, though. That is the power of playing a game on your first proper thing. So my first release day console was the original Xbox. I'm trying to remember, PS2, PS1. No, first release day I think was pretty sure was Xbox. So playing Halo Combat Evolved on that created a lifelong love of that franchise that I can never shake. I will always care about the new Halo release, and also got me into first-person shooters in a competitive way. I had been into first-person shooters previously with another one of my shout-outs from this, which was when I was a PC gamer, Doom. Obviously, I have right now next to me a recent purchase, which is a Doom scatter cushion that I've picked up recently for my office, which is one of my favourite possessions right now, from Insert Coin.
I love identifying the differences between us. I've pre-ordered an Animal Crossing cushion.
Nice. You're just so much nicer than me. I'm all about blood and guts and killing demons, mate. That's the way I roll. But no, so yeah, like Halo will always stay with me because of that connection. I bought that console. I guess it's not the first console I had at launch, but it was the first console I bought with my own money at launch. That really solidified my love with games, and I've talked about that before. So I won't go on about Halo too much. Other ones from that generational launch, big game for me was PGR. Big fan of racing games on consoles and PCs. I love racing games, and PGR was one of the best ever. Project Gotham Racing, and all of its sequels, incredible. Led to the Forza series, basically. Kind of connected in their lineage, especially Forza Horizon, more so than Motorsport. But Project Gotham Racing, I'd love to see that come back. But I do want to touch on they're all kind of connected. So Doom on PC. Richard, you've got Doom on Atari Jaguar. I also remember playing Doom on the SNES, and that was an early game for me as well. And it's like Doom for me on PC is almost a cheat because you can't say PCs have generational shifts, but for me that was a demarcation point. That was a split that happened that basically went, no, you can now play real games on PC because of Doom, and it was also basically the generational leap into first-person shooters. Yes, they'd made Wolfenstein before, but so few people had played that at that point. People were basically introduced to an FPS via Doom, and it totally changed the gaming landscape for me. I don't know what it was like on the Atari, but a Jaguar, the handheld, but was that any good?
No, Jaguar wasn't a handheld.
Oh, sorry, I was thinking of the Lynx. I'm sorry, I was thinking of the Lynx,
Yeah, Jaguar was a proper console. I was going to say it was really good. I can't legitimately say that, can I? It wasn't good at all.
No.
But yes, having Doom on the Jaguar was a phenomenal experience because I think it was the first proper console version that I remember. Certainly the first one that wasn't compromised. The PS1 version outdid it later. But at the time, that was awesome. Really great to be able to play that as someone who didn't have a PC that I could play games on. So yeah, really great experience playing that.
One of the weird ones for me, because I was a big PC gamer, but I actually discovered SimCity, which was a launch game on the SNES. On the SNES, that's where I first played a SimCity game, which is really peculiar if you think about it. And then I've went back across SimCity 2000 on PC, also on the SNES as well. Both solid ports. You wouldn't think that would work great on that kind of a controller, but actually did work really well. They mapped the cursor kind of control, and obviously because you've got such finite control over the time and the way it goes in SimCity, you can just pause it, and therefore you can play at a very leisurely pace. But I must have sunk hundreds of hours into SimCity on the SNES, which I had that around launch. Anything else? I mean, Rob, I'm looking at your list. There's a lot more modern stuff.
Son of Rome.
I would thought you might go there. We've talked about it before, didn't we? We talked about it as games, underrated games from the generation.
I really enjoyed it.
Rise
it was
is a
one of the
fun
first games I picked up on the Xbox One. I think my Xbox One came with Sunset Overdrive, which I did not get on with and did not complete and did not enjoy. But it was a white Xbox One, and I preferred the aesthetic of that. And yeah, Rise Son of Rome was one of the other games I picked up because I just carried on playing games like Destiny, that sort of thing, that I repurchased. I forget exactly how they did the transition between generations now. And it was just really good. It was a really good feeling. I like those sorts of combat games. And it was just a really well-polished, fun, competent game. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, Rise Son of Rome, I've still got that on my hard drive, even now, because I'm going to go back and do that again because that looks great.
Yeah.
I don't know how it looks now, but it's
just roaming about.
Yeah, made an impression. roaming
about. Took a minute, didn't it? It took a little while to sleep into Richard's brain there, but then it hit home, and he's an animal. Rob's an animal.
I didn't realise he would think that low. I've learned something about you there, Rob.
I have no depth to the lows I can sink for puns. Nothing is off limits.
There's one more I wanted to throw out here because it sort of proved something on console which hadn't been proven at that point, which was that PC first-person shooters could work on consoles even if it was a franchise you wouldn't expect. And then Call of Duty 2 on the 360, which had actually started life Call of Duty as a PC-only franchise, port at the launch of the 360 was a really good game, like a really strong first-person shooter, put together well. Obviously, predates Modern Warfare, which is what really set the console landscape on fire with the Call of Duty franchise. But yeah, Call of Duty 2 launched, and I remember having that and being like, "Wow, this is." I love my Halos, but there is something there's different feel to Call of Duty to Halo. It's a much more grounded, tactical, adult sort of first-person shooter experience compared to Halo, and that really stood out for me as a kind of a setting up the watermark there, putting that benchmark up there once again, and going, hey, you're going to get a different type of game on this generation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as launch games go, that was definitely one of the big ones on 360, and it had quite a few launch games, didn't it? Again, I think I bought 4 or 5 at launch because there was quite a spread of stuff to choose from, but that tops the group easily.
Anything else you guys want to throw out before we talk about the games we've been playing in the last week or so?
I've got to give props to Sonic Adventure, guys.
You're okay.
Dreamcast, you can't make that noise to Dreamcast.
Well, the only game I liked on Dreamcast was I think it's Choo Choo Rocket. That's pretty much the only thing I remember from that hardware.
That was pretty good. Yeah, that was like early online game, wasn't it? Choo Choo Rocket. But yeah, Sonic Adventure just looked so beast at the time, and that prompted me to import my Dreamcast. I've got my Dreamcast from Japan before the UK release.
Holy Christ! Wow.
Terrible game, really awful, but God, it looked good. Really looked good at the time.
You can tell where our bias lies because none of us we barely touched on any PS2 or PS3 games. But respectively, I do want to give a nod. And you'll notice a lot of my games are first-person shooters because that's just the gamer I am. But Time Splitters on PS2 and Resistance on PS3 were both really cool launch first-person shooters. Very different. Time Splitters was very funny, weird, anarchic, and really, you'd be fair to say Time Splitters 2 was definitely the better game. But at launch, Time Splitter really stood out on the PS2 as a really fun experience, and then Resistance on PS3 was the beginning of a franchise that kind of didn't give it the service it deserved. I think by the end there, it kind of just petered out by the time we got around to Resistance 3. But it was a really cool idea of this kind of alien invasion, but in a period of time, not modern day, sort of World War II era tech against aliens, and how they're kind of invading from within almost, and there was like a whole viral thing about it, and it was dark and it was twisted, and it had some really cool themes and ideas about it. It looked like a muddy mess to a degree on PS2.
Say, yeah, it didn't look next gen. It didn't look good.
It looked pretty bad. They wanted their Halo killer, and it didn't really fly in that regard. But it had some cool ideas, and it was a fun franchise that didn't get the good ending it needed. I didn't think, but
yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Beyond PS1, I don't think any of our lists betray any sort of bias against PlayStation. It's just a simple fact. They take their time getting off the ground, don't they? PlayStations. So once they're a year, 2 years in, they are flying, and there's phenomenal releases every 6 months, every year that you just cannot miss. But that first year,
they often play. They play it really safe, don't they? They play it really safe. You get your sports games, you get your racing games. Often, number 10 in the franchise's history or whatever, and they kind of just they tick along. They build their base, and then once they've got the the units installed, that's when you start to see the games taking advantage of that hardware. And I don't see that being any different in this coming generation. It's almost certainly going to be the case. Both consoles are starting slowly this time around, but I think we're going to see great things. So. I think that moves us on to the final segment of the show where we discuss some of the games we've been playing. And before I dive deep into Watchdogs Legion for you guys, which is probably the big release of the last week or so, I really want to know from Richard, want to know if it's worth me picking up Mummy Demastered, because it had a really good buzz around that game at the time it came out. It's very strange because it's a 16-bit movie tie-in to a film nobody liked. But the game is meant to be really freaking good. So, yeah, Rob does. I don't know if you know much about this, Rob. It's very strange. It's a Metroidvania 16-bit style video game based on the Tom Cruise Mummy film, which literally nobody enjoyed, including myself. It was fine, but it's probably
Tom Cruise
one of the.
Probably enjoyed it.
He got a good paycheck, but it was the attempt to start off a new Universal Monsters series of films, which failed, and. Is this a good game, Richard? Is it worth picking up? Because it looks quite cool.
Yeah, it's been on my list for ages.
Same, yeah.
There was a good buzz around it. It came out 3 years ago now, and it's been on my wish list for the longest time. Because who wants a mummy game? But then it is supposed to be great, and it is pretty great. So as you say, it's Metroidvania. It sounds and looks brilliant. For that style, no one's going to be blown away by the graphics or anything because it's old pixel art, but really good music, well drawn and well animated sprites, and it's by Way Forward. I think they're the guys who did the Shantae games, so good lineage there as well for 2D platforming, and I'm really enjoying it. It is really good so far. I'm probably about a third in, and I've played it for 2 hours, so I don't think it's a big game by any stretch.
Does it follow the story of the film? What is it?
No, it's a parallel story. So Tom Cruise is not in it. You are a soldier guy who's sent in to chase down the mummy. Did you see the film?
Yes.
So
I have not, but I don't care about spoilers, so please just go ahead.
There's some sort of organisation that's trying to dig her up in it and use her powers or something.
Well, yeah. So Russell Crowe's Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, isn't it? And that's the organisation he runs.
Yeah, he's in it. You see him talking to you on the radio and whatever, and basically his minions get sent in. So if you die, another one comes along. Right. And the one that died, you find them in the levels, so it's got kind of a Dark Souls vibe. If you die, you lose all of your stuff. You've got to go back in as a new soldier, kill the zombie one, and pick up all the equipment that they had.
That's cool.
So that's pretty cool.
I like that.
But yeah, it does a really good job of the whole Metroidvania thing. It looks kind of like it's got kind of a Castlevania vibe about it. It's dark. You can shoot like lights to get health out of them. It's very faithful to that template. And yeah, it just does a good job in terms of the upgrades it gives you. You get higher jumps. You get running abilities. You can hang off ceilings and climb across crevices and stuff like that. It's got some good boss fights. I think if you like 16-bit chiptune music and that sort of side-scrolling shooty bang bang game, then this is a really good one of those.
Big fan of Axiom Verge. Is it anything like that?
That is another one that's on my list.
Oh, you should play that. It's very good.
Yeah, I know I should. I'm waiting for a decent sale on it, but I will get that at some point. But yeah.
How much is this going for? How much is the Mummy right now? I mean, until Tuesday. I think that's when the sale ends.
It's been 15, 16 quid for the longest time, but it's now 8, and I think it's worth that.
Cool.
Okay.
So
if you want to keep up your achievement run, because we kicked the ass out of achievements last month, didn't we?
We did.
This looks like a reasonably easy 1,000 Gs, so consider that.
Rob, there's nothing on your list, but did you want to throw anything out before I dive into Watchdogs?
There are 3 games on my list.
Oh, my list has not updated on my crappy tablet.
So. I just thought you were trying to throw more shade at the fact I've been playing the Pokemon Sword DLC.
You've already had time talking about quite a lot of Pokemon earlier on. So don't spend too much more time on Pokemon.
The topic.
I've had specific feedback
and
comments
new content
from the audience saying, "Can you never talk about Pokemon?"
Mate, let him talk about it. Because I want to hear about this.
I don't want to hear about Watchdogs Legions, but, here we are.
Everybody else does.
So, obviously, the second part of the expansion pass came out last Friday. That was their Crown Tundra DLC. We've got a new bit of storyline, keeps you entertained for a couple of hours, and you've got some new legendary Pokemon, new adventures, new mysteries, and a new area on the map. It's really good fun. I've been really enjoying it. Yeah, new forms, new Pokemon, like the Galarian versions. Yes, Ben?
Can I ask a question? Genuine Pokemon question. I remember around the time this game came out, there was a lot of hoo-ha about how there weren't many Pokemon in the game, or it wasn't the full roster of Pokemon it should be, or something. I didn't quite understand it all. But are we now up to where the amount of Pokemon should be?
We are significantly closer. There are still some that you can't put in the game. That is frustrating me still. It's the biggest drawback in Sword and Shield. It would be an amazing Pokemon game if it had what's termed the National Dex, which is ability to put all of the Pokemon that have existed in the game.
Another question.
Yes.
Will that mean there's just going to be another season pass from Nintendo that will then add those in? Because Nintendo really likes season passes now, it seems. That's been a huge thing for them this generation.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I want to see more or if I'm happy with what's been provided now. I'm happy with what we've got, but I think now is the time for some goodwill-free updates, considering the mass crusade that they had against them.
How many season passes? How many expansion passes have we had for the last stupid Smash Brothers game? I mean, Christ Almighty, they just keep putting them out. So I mean, I don't think Pokemon is anywhere near done. I think there'll be another one.
Yeah,
I think that seems.
I know. I'm hoping they're working on the next set of games already. We should be due some Gen 4 remasters at some point with current trends, with how Nintendo do Pokemon games. The next set of games in the main series should come out in November next year, and they should be remasters of a DS title on the Switch. That's how they tend to do it. Previous generational game on the current gen. They remaster it, and their remasters are usually from the ground up remakes. They're actual remasters, not just it's a little shinier.
You really paid attention to that. That's pretty cool. Actually, I've never really looked at it that closely. I just know there's always a shit ton of Pokemon games. So that okay. Awesome.
It's going to be interesting. I'm optimistic. I'm hopeful.
The Let's Go remaster wasn't exactly ground up, was it? I mean, it looked like it was.
That wasn't a remaster. That wasn't a remaster or release. That was a graphical beta test that was turned into a money-making exercise. they were testing new features and they were testing ideas and testing the hardware and decided they could actually make a half-decent game out of it.
That was Pokemon Yellow, wasn't it? But just with graphical updates.
Exactly that. And Pokemon roaming around in the overworld, stuff like that.
Okay. Cool. Right. Let's dive into Watch Dogs. So I've put about, I don't know, 6-7 hours, something like that, maybe a bit more into Watch Dogs Legion so far. I don't know. I mean, do you guys need me to tell you what this is? Let me quickly tell you what Watch Dogs Legion is. It's the third game in the Watch Dogs franchise. In this, we're in London, and the big change here is we don't have a single main playable character. You can recruit from anybody you find in London, add them to your team, and then play as them, and they will give you different types of buffs and weapons and abilities and hackeriness or good at punching, or they come with a rocket launcher, not even kidding. And it's that's kind of the thrust of the gameplay change. It's still an open world, it's still a city kind of open world game, so you're going around there in cars, and best thing you can do actually is hack cargo drones, get on the cargo drone and then fly around London on it, which is pretty awesome. Having a lot of fun doing that. What else? I mean, it's a dystopic London. It's been controlled by this PMC called Albion. It's also been kind of given over to organized crime to a degree. There's a rival hacking group called 0 Day. I'm still getting into all the story side of this, but mostly I'm just messing around, recruiting people, doing side things, seeing what I can break, and then doing that thing where you hack the cars so that they go out of control and run over pedestrians, which I find hilarious. So any questions, any thoughts, any desire for any more? I'm enjoying it. That helps.
It's the third game, but it's not called Watch Dogs 3, so no. I guess that points to it being a fresh take on Watch Dogs. Is there any connection to the others, or is it its own game?
Well, yeah, so it's DedSec. Yeah, you're still DedSec. You know, so basically at the beginning of the game, you play as like a James Bond type. There's like a tutorial mission basically. At the beginning of the game, you're like James Bond. You're breaking into Houses of Parliament. Somebody set up a bunch of bombs all around London. You're going to disarm them. You're going to save the day. You've got DedSec in your ear. They're feeding you intel about what you're going to do, what you've got to do. You've got this hacking AI thing called Bagley. He's helping you. He's very... So the main characters in the game, because there's no single character you play as, you spend a lot of time talking to these other two characters, Sabine and Bagley. So they're your mission givers. They're the one that contextualize everything for you. They're the ones that help you get through the story, which is nicely done. I actually think it works really well. And obviously the name Legion comes from the idea of you have legions of characters that you can recruit from to create your team, which is accurate, and it works, and it's surprisingly good at how it works, because... for example, you're going to have a lot of variety in your recruitment missions, and they're actually really good fun, and they're different, and they all kind of, that's your side missions in this game. There's not a lot of other side missions, so there's the story missions and then your recruiting missions, really. And there's other things to do in the world, but that's predominantly where you get your sort of flavor from. And for example, so there was this cop. He didn't really like DedSec, so first of all I had to do something a bit dodgy to get him on side. I had to basically hack his colleague at the police force into her emails, and then pass over to him some of her dodgy emails so he could blackmail her, and then that got him on side. So that was like, okay, sure. And then at that point I did another thing for him. I can't remember what the second bit of the mission was, but then he joined my team. And one of the things I find really amusing about this is the different dialects and the accents you get in this game. So you'll go up to someone in London and you'll like start talking to them, and it's always like, what am I gonna get? Are they going to be a Cockneyed geezer? Are they going to be a Scouser? Are they going to be from Scotland? Are they going to be Liverpudlian? Are they going to be Welsh? You just don't know. But there's always going to be a different weird British accent that comes out of this face, and they don't always match. So it's a case of you might play a game with me, sat next to me, find exactly the same NPC, and they're going to have a totally different voice and personality that comes out of them. It's because there's a level of auto generation that's going on here. I feel obviously there's within a pool and there are parameters, so you're never going to have a dude's voice coming out of a woman. But to be honest, I haven't met any transgender characters yet, so it's possible that actually could happen. I'm really not sure. They do seem to have gone out of their way to be as multicultural and representative as absolutely possible. Like, you have every different type of person in this game you can imagine, and they're not stereotyping anyone. It's really kind of cool, actually. So you get
quite representative of London, actually.
Yeah, exactly. The whole idea, it's a melting pot,
multicultural city.
Absolutely, and that's really kind of positive. Sorry, was that Rich?
the whole project came out of it was kind of a political project, wasn't it, to begin with, or at least they said that it was going to be, because they presented it as this post-Brexit backdrop.
But this is also Ubisoft, isn't it? This is also Ubisoft, where they might want to present the idea of a political stance to get people interested and fired up, but by the time a game comes out, they will have to shave the edges off, because they understand that they are producing mass media for consumption across all demographics. I think even then there is still some fair politics on display here. While they never talk, I mean, there is police abuse. For example, you will see these PMCs overstepping and detaining people without cause, beating them in the streets, and you can step in and intervene, which actually has this cool effect of the people around you, and not just necessarily people around you, but the people those people are connected to will hear about what you've done as a member of DedSec and will be more favourable to you. So it might be easier to, say, recruit them going forwards. So you have this real tangible effect on the London. So you know, in gameplay perspective, you're also doing things like liberating the different boroughs and stuff. So you're going around doing missions and like winning over whole swathes of London. But then you have the story, which is dealing with obviously who is Zero Day, who are they tied into, how are they connected to the politics of that has taken over. I'm still very early in all that, so I can't talk too deeply about the politics of it. But it does seem like there isn't this sort of ability Ubisoft has in the past to absolutely avoid everything political, because it does feel like, just from the nature of the setting and the nature of the gameplay, you are trying to liberate an oppressed London being controlled by a form of right-wing policing and government. So therefore, you know, you're on the side of good here, even if sometimes, and in my case often, good people will shoot a lot of other people to get what needs to be done. You can, by the way, play this completely non-lethally. If you want to just go around with the stun guns, which is now this. Do you remember in DedSec 2 how you could 3D print guns that could kill people? You can't do that anymore. You can only create yourself non-lethal weapons, right, for your team. So the only way to get lethal weapons is if you recruit someone who carries a lethal weapon, right? So like you could recruit a policeman who's got a 9mm. You can recruit a gang member who's got an SMG. Or you can recruit Mary Bloggs on the street who for some reason has a pump action shotgun. Don't really know why, but she has one. But you might be able to find out more about that, because you can deep profile her, look into her like itinerary, find out more about her, and then probably will be a reason that she carries a shotgun. So they do actually contextualize it.
That's the tendrils of Hot Fuzz, isn't it?
Yeah.
Old woman with a shotgun.
Absolutely. Yes, that's such a great movie. Any more questions, Richard? It's a cool game though. I'm having a lot of fun, I tell you. Like, just the systems are really interconnected, and you can just get up to some real hijinks, which I think is the fun of an open world game like this. I mean, I'll put it this way: in AC Valhalla that's about to come out, I'm expecting a much more serious narrative, structured open world game. Rob, have you put your hand up? Looks like you are.
I do. I was waiting for your sentence to finish.
I was just going to say, whereas with this feels much more like, here's a playground. Yeah, there's a story. Yeah, it's dark and oppressive. But at the end of the day, what are you going to do? You're going to liberate London from the bad guys, right? But while you're doing it, have fun, you know? Do some silly shit, because that's kind of Watchdogs.
It sounds like it's just a good sequel, because it takes what was before and builds on it moving forward. They fixed, obviously, the exploits where you can 3D print yourself, you know, lethal stuff, get round non-lethality. But would you say that it's doing what a good sequel should do, taking what was before, improving it, fixing it, and building upon it?
It's remarkably ambitious, and from what I can tell, it's pulled it off. I haven't seen like egregious duplication of characters. I imagine there are going to be duplication, but you see so many that you know the city feels truly alive with vehicles and people walking around everywhere, that you see so many that you would never remember. Like, unless they happen to be an exact copy of someone you recruited, I suspect. That would be the only way that you would actually be like, oh, that they've just reused that character. But for the most part, everybody you see is unique. They've all got different like character aspects. They've all got different buffs, and you know, depending on how you want to play it, you might want to recruit just hackers. You might want to recruit. I did this like side quest structure. There was one side thing which was the bare knuckle boxing ring, like it was kind of like an MMA TV show, but actually just thugs hitting each other. And I went around and did all of those, and the reason I did that was I wanted someone who'd be really good, you know, just for fist fights. So I've got a guy who's now really good at that, and he's now in my team. So I was able to basically, when you win each one of those events, you get to recruit from the people you've beaten in those fights, and they have some really good, unique melee based stats and stuff, but you still have to then do the side missions to recruit them and find out a bit more about them. And then they do this thing so that it isn't like your protagonists are silent, right? So they do interact with people with their strange accent, whatever it might be, but they'll it always feels that does feel a bit disjointed, because it feels like they've obviously got a limited pool of dialogue responses, and they're talking to someone with a limited pool of dialogue responses, and they've done their best to match them up, but it doesn't always feel like the most natural of conversations. It's sometimes like, right, so you can imagine probably how you would sort it, wouldn't you? You'd have like, say, 10 hoppers, and in each hopper you've got 4 responses, right? So they'd go, right, we need to match hoppers 2 and 2 for this conversation. So they're close, but they're not always perfect, but it doesn't feel so terrible that it pulls you out of the fun of it. It's still... Yeah, you still sound like, all right, mate, yeah, I'm here with DedSec. I'm going to go sort out some geezers for you. And it's like, it's so funny. Like, I love that. I love the European take on Londoners and English people in general, and the United Kingdom. Because like I said, there's Scottish people show. I recruited a woman earlier. She's from Scotland. She's a badass hacker chick who I've now... And of course, you can go to shops, by the way, and there's millions of different types of shops, and you can completely... go to town with how you want to make your dude or woman look, and like completely non-gendered. You can dress a guy up completely in female clothing and vice versa, and that's awesome, and I love that. And you can really have a team of exactly what you want them to be. You know, you want them to be all grannies, you want them to be all policemen, you want them to be all hackers, you want them to be all fighters, you want them to be shooty guys. You know, the choices are endless. My team at the minute is just a mixture, like super diverse. I have people from all walks and with all different buffs and reasons for being there and stuff. But I think you can have up to like 12 or 15 active operatives. And you switch between them, and then you have this other thing where you can like shortlist people. So you'd be walking past people in the street, and you know, you just always hit an LB, have a look at their stats, oh, that one's a good one, right? And then you sort of like push a button, and it adds them to a list of potential people you can then go and recruit later on. So it then will keep track of them, and so you don't lose them, but you don't have to do it straight away, which is actually really user friendly and helpful, because you might be just walking to the next story mission, or you know, you've got an objective in mind, but you don't want to lose that person, do you? Cool thing, driving cars, there's auto drive. So right, because it's all like slightly near future, you set a waypoint. Most cars, some of them are old, so it doesn't work, which is cool as well, but you get in a modern one and you hit auto drive, and it will just drive you to the waypoint you've set, or the objectives you've set, and you can just enjoy the view as you go, and listen to some music. It's great, super handy, but also really quick fast travel as well. All the tube stations basically are fast travel locations, so every time you find one, you'll just pop on your map and you can fast travel to that place. So it's clever, easy to get around. Or like I said, ride a drone, which is great fun. Yeah, really, really good.
That underground stations used as fast travel points, that's cool. I like that. I like that one a lot.
Richard, anything else?
I was just going to say, it doesn't look like it has the typical vibe of an Ubisoft open world. It looks more playful than that, almost like a Fable title, you know, like a modern day Fable game.
I kind of see where you're coming from. Yeah, it is playful. It is about giving you this environment to just mess around in. I mean, they started down that road definitely with Watch Dogs 2, which I really enjoyed, because Watch Dogs 1, very po-faced, very serious.
Yeah.
Watch Dogs 2,
the only one I played. I didn't play 2.
2's really good. 2's really, really good. It's also got something that was rare then and still quite rare now, which is a really good black man protagonist. And it actually does a good job with that characterization, and it doesn't feel one-dimensional. And that they've now kind of built on the sort of sillier aspects of Watch Dogs 2 into Legion, because I think the feedback was that's what we enjoyed about it as fans of it, and it was. And now they've come to Legion. Now there are some drawbacks. There's less interior environments in this game. That like you can't walk into every shop. For example, you got for shops now you have like an interface at the front, and then you can kind of like pick stuff from a menu, but you don't go into them. There are still interior environments, but they're often like the big enemy strongholds or your pubs that you can go into to play darts mini games and stuff like that. But it's not like you can walk into every building. That's just there's too much. That was never going to happen. But I never found that an issue. There's still enough of them, like the Tate Modern and the Houses of Parliament, all the big the landmarks you'd expect you can go into and explore. But like I said, they're often enemy controlled. So what you're going to be doing there is like taking them over and clearing out the Albion forces and stuff to liberate them. But yeah, I'm having a great time. It's a really cool experience, and I think Cyberpunk actually getting delayed probably helped out. So
you're not tempted to wait for Series X? How does it perform on the One?
The One X runs nice. Yeah, it runs. I've not had any frame rate issues, but obviously the big improvement on the Series X is going to be the full ray tracing abilities that this game is going to have. It already looks nice when it's raining and stuff and at night. I can only imagine when the RTX style full hardware ray tracing comes in with the update on Series X, it's going to look incredible. Like it's still only going to be 30 frames, but I think with that ray tracing, it's going to pop like crazy because there's a lot of neon. And one of the things they've done in this future version of London is there's a lot of like holographic displays everywhere. So like on the sides of buses and like just around the city, so like big holograms and stuff. So if they're all lit with ray tracing lighting effects, that should look just insane. Like, so I'm really looking forward to checking it out, and I'll definitely revisit that and we'll talk about it when that update's out for it and stuff. Yeah, 100%. But no, I'm having a really good time with it. It's a really nice just drop in, play for a bit, do a mission or two, drop back out. I mean, it's really solid, really, really well made. Yeah, very, very good. Yes,
always good to hear.
Cool. So I think that's the end of the games we are going to talk about today on today's podcast. But before we do to the wrapping up bit at the very end, we want to announce a new feature that's coming to the show. Every 2 weeks, the three of us are going to play and then talk about a Game Pass game, because that way we all get to play the same game and we all get to have a little chat. It's going to be like a Game Pass book club. And the way we're going to...
we were doing that. I wondered what you were talking about. But
brilliant,
yeah, sorry.
Brilliant, Richard. Good job. Paying attention then, buddy. Love it. And what we'll do is for this first one, we're going to suggest some and then we're going to vote. Kinda. We'll work it out. We'll hash it out. And then we'll just go in turns, I think, for every subsequent one. So who wants to suggest a game?
Or we can say to listeners,
if you want to
suggest a game,
absolutely.
Hit us up.
Yeah.
Tell us
brilliant.
what you want us to play.
That would be fantastic.
Punish us.
Less of that, but
be nice to us, please. Punish Richard, yeah.
So Richard, nice. What game did you want to suggest, buddy?
Well, outside the show, I did suggest one. I'm thinking otherwise now, though, because Five Nights at Freddy's has just appeared, and that looks like it's probably easy gamer score.
Yeah, but let's not do it just for easy gamer score, you whore. Gamer score whore.
No. Well, we've just seen remasters of some LucasArts classics.
Stealing my idea? Oh my god, that's what I suggested, and now you're going to steal that. Oh,
I'm not stealing it. I'm looking at what's just been added and what I haven't already played.
See, what I'm hearing here is that he's agreeing you without actually agreeing with you.
Do you have a suggestion? While Richard ruminates, do you have a suggestion, Rob?
Yes, I do. Darksiders Genesis.
Interesting. That came out of left field.
Yeah, I didn't see that coming.
Wow. Okay.
I love the main series Darksiders games. I love them, and I've not played Genesis yet, and this is a bit of a departure.
I mean, I can totally take or leave the main ones, but this one being more like Diablo is more appealing to me. So that's not a bad shout. Richard, have you coming back with one? Are you gonna steal my idea, or have you got something else? Right. Well, I'm going to suggest Day of the Tentacle before Richard can, because it's an absolute classic, and therefore Richard needs to suggest something else. And I've been curious about the remaster of it, and the LucasArts games are fantastic. So Richard, oh my god, look at him, he can't choose. It's like a kid in a candy store. Too many good games, man.
It's hard to choose one that I haven't already tried. I think
it doesn't have to be one you haven't already tried. It doesn't have to. There's nowhere is there a rule. Whatever you want.
Grim Fandango. Out of the LucasArts ones that have just been added, I want to play Grim Fandango.
Do you know what, though? I'm going to vote for Darksiders Genesis with Rob on this.
Ha! Wonderful.
Richard?
Darksiders. I wouldn't mind Darksiders.
Why not? Let's check it out because it's a game. Honestly, it's a game I would never have played without being suggested. So I would never have bothered with that. So let's do it. Let's do Darksiders Genesis for 2 weeks from now. And then
it may end up being a little bit longer than 2 weeks. Obviously, we've got the Series X coverage coming up.
I've forgotten about that. Of course, that'll be 2 weeks,
so that may delay us. I know I don't have a functioning Xbox until that point. Mine has finally died.
Should we say a month?
This is what I was going to say. 5 Nights at Freddy's, because we'll get it out of the way quickly.
No, the reason being is that 2 weeks from now, Richard, will be the podcast where we discuss the Series X launch.
Yes.
Won't it? Yeah. So that is what we'll be doing then. But good point. So make it a month, Darksiders Genesis, and then we will go on a 2 weekly basis, and then we'll decide on like a pattern. Rob's had one, so it'll be me or you, Richard, next.
Indeed.
So, okay, month's time from now. Start of December, Darksiders Genesis. So tune in for that discussion. But as Rob has mentioned, in 2 weeks' time, we will have our very special first deep dive look. It'll be in that week. It might be sooner. It might be earlier than a Sunday. Deep dive look into the launch of the Series X/S and the games we've been playing, like Destiny and Assassin's Creed and Watchdogs and Dirt 5 and all of that. And we're just going to talk about our initial impressions of the hardware, as long as it all gets delivered now that we're in lockdown part 2.
Indeed.
So fingers crossed on all of that.
All of our timelines are subject to change, but we will do our best to keep you guys informed.
But it's exciting. It's exciting times. We'll see what happens. But yeah, that's been another episode of Experience Kills. You can find Experience Kills on Twitter at Experience Kills, strangely enough. Richard, where can people find you on Twitter?
If you want to find me, you can find me at Colonel Red.
What about you, Mr. Rob?
You can find me at Homeless Mr. Gibbs.
And you can find me at DIYE. By all means, do us a favour. If you've watched this on YouTube, give us a like and subscribe. That would be much appreciated. If, however, you don't have time to watch a lengthy podcast on YouTube, we are now available on just about every podcast provider you can possibly imagine. If you pop in Experience Kills, we will be there, including Alexa and Google Play, if you want to listen to us say when you're on the kid. Did you see my Alexa light up when I said its name then in the background? I just caught that in the video. That was so funny. It's always listening. Always. So that's basically been another episode. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. I think that was a good one, guys. What did you think? As the light
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. We enjoyed it. That's all that counts, isn't it? As long as we enjoy what we do.
We'll be back next week, Rob, I think, with Cameron, maybe, as long as schedules align. And then in a couple of weeks with Richard to dive into hardware of a new generation variety. Oh my God, I can't believe it's really here.
Counting down.
Finally
We're really close.
Oh, that's so exciting. Right, so, no further ado. I bid you guys a good evening. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.